So today is the day I get to say three of my favorite words. Do you know what they are?
What?
I'm with Slash. It doesn't happen often in
I,
life, but
yeah.
today is the day that I get to say this. First of all, I told you off Zoom and off recording. I'm obsessed with Orgy of the Damned. Number one for the past 4 weeks on the Billboard Blues album charts. Did you think that this would happen?
You know what? This was one of those kind of projects where we just did it totally for the fun of it. I had absolutely no expectations. I just have been dying to do a sort of blues centric record. And we just did it and it was fun. And we did it a year ago. So we've been sitting on it all this time because I had to finish the Guns tour, which is what I was doing when I made it. And then I had the Conspirators tour, which we just finished. So I had this date that for almost a year after the making of the record to release it. So I haven't even listened to it since then. So all of a sudden it comes out,
Crazy.
everybody's like, really digging it, which is great, but I didn't expect it to be on the Billboard charts in any capacity.
Well, literally, like I'm literally going like this. What's that smell? I smell a Grammy. I think this is good. I think you're going to get a Grammy for this.
Don't even go there.
I really, really do. That's the first thing I thought when I was listening to it. Now, let me start by saying, the way that the fans have reacted. I saw a fan quote. I sometimes I read stuff, sometimes I don't. It depends on what I'm looking at. But I love that when someone said Slash gave us what we didn't know that we needed. And I thought, wow, this is a really special record.
Back in the day, that would have sounded a little ominous.
But not anymore,
Anyway,
not with the blues
okay, yeah,
record.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, so what was that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a special record. Everybody's feeling this. And I think the beauty of this, when I first played Killing Floor on the air, and it's so funny, and this is why it connects like this. Someone hits me up and says, Terrie, TC, it's the Lemon Song. And I go, no, the Lemon Song is Killing Floor.
Oh, was that
People
someone
don't
said that? Yeah.
know what, and I hate to say like it's a blues genre. That genre is not what you say. The blues is American music, period.
Yeah.
End of story. It not only is introducing it to a whole new audience, it is bringing these songs back and giving them this coat of something, whether it's paint or passion, that's introducing them to people that already knew them in a whole different way.
Yeah. Well, it was a huge influence on me coming up. It's funny you mentioned the Lemon Song thing because that was actually my introduction to Killing Floor as well. I had never heard it prior to that, and I was like, that's a really cool riff. And then somehow I found out that it was Howlin' Wolf not too long after that. But these songs all had a massive influence on how I played guitar and all that. So I just wanted to do it for the fun of it. It didn't even, I feel bad now, but I didn't even think about how it was introducing it to another generation of kids that might not have heard it before. And now that it's come out, I realize that a bunch of these songs probably are sort of fresh and new to a certain, age group. And that's really cool because I think the legacy of these songs to continue forever is super, super important. There's such a massive influence. It's really the DNA is in everything that is in popular music. That doesn't sound anything like it, but it's there. That undercurrent is in everything. So it's important to know your history a little bit and your roots,
Yeah.
But
And the artists that you have on this record with you are
yeah.
so diverse and everybody fits, I mean, so incredibly well. I mean, look, Billy Gibbons, just you and Billy trading off is like, my arms were like on fire. I'm like, oh my God, it's beyond chills. And Gary Clark Jr. But then you look at somebody like Iggy, and if you're a Stooges fan, you've heard, I'm a Stooges fan, I'm an Iggy fan. So I know that he has talked about how the blues rebelled him, as a kid and stuff, but he's not the person you would think of having on a blues record.
No, I mean, I had everybody, the record already laid out and everybody that was going to be on it already sort of set up. And Johnny Griperic, who's our bass player, he mentioned to me that he'd read that Iggy'd always wanted to do a blues thing. And and it hit me and I was like, huh, that's interesting. And I thought the record's done. I'm not let me call Iggy, let me just see, you know. And I called him up and he goes, yeah, man, I just never had the opportunity. So I said, if you were going to do a blues cover, which song would it be? And without even thinking about it, he said, Awful Dream by Lightning Hopkins. And I was like, wow, that sounds like something. I could tell it was something that meant something to him, very
It's a
specific.
dark song, you know, where you
Yeah,
can picture he brought his, you know, the best part is he brought his Iggy-ness to
yeah,
that
yeah.
song.
Well, it was cool. So I listened to the original, which is really sort of a very loose, almost outtake kind of a thing. So I heard it and I get, well, I get the general idea. And I called Iggy and I said, well, let's meet up in a week. And he flew into LA and we did it sitting on a couple stools in my lounge in my studio, which is really just a tiny living room. And we just did it in a couple takes, you know. So it was really raw, and it would never have existed had I not called Iggy and asked him that question about a blues cover that he might want to do. And so that song is unique on the record in that way, because everything else, I'd picked the song and called the singer and asked them if they would want to do it. But this was a song that Iggy picked himself.
Yeah, and talk to me about the sequencing too, because I was wondering if you, you know, consciously sequence this record this way, because I love Chris Robinson kind of opening it up, and I love your, you know, amazing new song
Oh, the
closing
instrumental
the
thing, yeah.
chapter,
Uh,
which I think is brilliant. So was that something, or did it just kind of turn out the way it kind of turned out?
No, no, sequencing is always really, really, in my mind anyway, a really important part of putting a record together, because you can put the sequence out of whack and the effect of the record will be affected, and it might not be as positive as if you'd done it a different way. So and I remember a couple records where the sequencing, you know, especially the opening of the record was super, super important. And I've also heard records where it's like, why did you put that at the front of the record? You know,
Yeah.
anyway, so it takes a second to sequence the record, and I knew pretty early on that I wanted the pusher, even though it's not a blues purist blues song. That had to be the opening because it was just too perfect for that. And then everything else is just sort of set up as in pace and whatnot. And the instrumental at the end, that was really the only place that I could think to put it, just to close the record out on a certain note, you know. So I mean, I think the sequence worked out pretty well, especially because I didn't even get into the sequence again until a year later and listened to the record fresh, and I was like, yeah, this is a good sequence.
I think
So
that's why I love the record so much, because I put it on and, you know, Chris kind of opens it up and he's perfect to do, you know, the pusher, a song that most people are synonymous with Steppenwolf, you know,
mhm.
and then, you know, it builds and it builds and then Metal Chestnut kind of brings it back down again. And I think that that's what made me just fall in love with it. And you know what else I love? The inclusion of female talent. You
uh,
never forget the ladies. You don't. You're
uh,
always somebody, you know, to be like, hey, let's take Plush out on tour. I hear they're a hot new band, or let's take Samantha Fish out because I want to talk about the Serpent Festival. And the women that you have on this record, first of all, Beth Hart, like I remember the first time she came to DHA in the early 90s. She's of another universe with her
yeah.
vocals. She's like Janis Joplin. I mean, she just,
She's amazing.
yeah.
And she's so emotional. It's so everything from her is from the heart. There's no sort of like faking it. There's
Yeah.
no calling it in with her. And I've been friends with her for a long time, and I've worked with her for a couple times. So Stormy Monday, which was based off of the Etta James version, which is a live version from early 70s or late 60s, I really like. So I wanted to do a female version, and Beth was the first one that came to mind. And I called her up, and then she had this great idea of doing it in a minor key, which made it a lot darker and is sort of even sexier in its own kind of melancholy way. But when she came in to do it, the cool thing about that song is when we recorded the record, we did all the songs live musically, right? And only a couple people were actually present to do vocals when we actually cut the whole album. The other vocals, I had to fly out to see Brian. I had to fly it out to Chris Stapleton, and here. Anyway, but Beth was there when we actually did the record. And so what happened was she said, "Yeah, let's do it in a minor key." I said, "Okay, we're going in the studio tomorrow, so come down at such and such a time." And so we went to go practice the song in this new mode because we'd always played it in a major, and we worked out this minor arrangement at rehearsal, and we were going to start rehearsing it in the studio before she came in to do the vocal. But I didn't know she was in the booth when I plugged in and started playing. And so the band starts jamming, and she just starts singing, and she was behind me in this booth. I had no idea. So that was the only take we did because she was so she put so much heart and soul and energy and emotion into that take that it was like she goes, I'm done.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't.
She's in the moment.
And we just were rehearsing it. So it was really like a one in a million sort of take that just happened. Like we were just feeling it out. Anyway, so it's one of those kind of cool moments. And she just came back from the Jeff Beck Memorial. So she was very raw, you know. Anyway, but that's the story about
But
that.
there's
That
so many in the pocket moments like that on this
yeah.
record. I wanted to ask you about the Demi Lovato. First of all, the video for Papa Was a Rolling Stone that you guys put together is incredible. I wanted to ask you about Demi. Like, listen, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of a novice when it comes to her. I knew she was a great vocalist. I know she's a pop vocalist. I don't know that meant much of her music. So I was so blown away at how in the pocket she was. Were you surprised at how in the pocket she was singing that song? Because that song is so emotional as well.
It was an
She was killer.
interesting thing doing it with her because I wanted to have a young female voice to do that song as opposed to I covered it years ago in Snake Pit, and I had Rod Jackson singing, and he did very much the Temptations kind of delivery, and it was great. But on this one I wanted to do a young female voice to tell that story of the estranged late father, right? And so I called Demi because I knew her, I know her voice a little bit, and I was like, she would probably be really good at this. But the most important thing about calling any of these people is when you call and mention the song, they have to have a connection to it. Because if they don't have that, then there's no reason to pursue it because you have to be completely invested in it, you know, when you do it. Anyway, so when I brought it up to Demi, she was like, "Oh wow, that would be amazing." You know, there's something about that song and her history that she really relates to. I didn't ask any questions about it. So anyway, so she jumped at the chance, and so that was one of the times I had to go to her at a studio. Fortunately, it was in Los Angeles, but so I went to her, and I sat through the whole session, and she was like on fire doing it. She was so like I said, invested in it. It was great. It gave me, made the hairs of my arms.
Crazy. And your band, I mean, your band is just off the charts. And then we also have Dorothy. I want to make sure Dorothy gets a mention because I
Yeah, no,
love her.
she
She
was
was
great.
phenomenal, on Key to the Highway. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
I'd always wanted to work with her, and I never been able to, like, we tried to tour with her, and we could never get the schedules to align. And she and I never really met. But when we were doing Key to the Highway, I thought this is a song I can see if I can get Dorothy on, right?
Yeah.
And so she and I worked together for the first time. And again, another one, she came in and just delivered. And it sort of shocked me how into the vocals she was, just standing in the booth and singing it. It was really powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
she's
in
great.
everything. She's a rock star. I look at Dorothy, like everything about her is like she's just such a star. And your band, we got to give some love to the
Yeah, yeah.
band. This is like, is this your blues band or
This
because
was
these guys are unbelievable
really
when you
good.
see them, even like in the video with Demi Lovato and stuff. Holy
Well,
cow.
there's okay, two of the guys, I used to have a blues cover band, which is sort of what this stems from. I always thought back then it would be great to make a record out of it, but it was such a throw and go fun thing. It wasn't really what you call a career priority at the time, and I had a lot going on because I just left Guns N' Roses, and I was trying to figure out the fuck I was going to do next and all this stuff. But I had this fun project doing cover songs with this band, and Teddy Andreatis, who's the singer and the keyboard player, and Johnny Griperic is the bass player. And then so I called them when I said I'm going to do this record finally. I called them up and we went in the studio, and then I brought Tash Neal in, who's the other singer and also incredible guitar player. And I'd seen him at a blues festival a few years back and thought he was really great. So he came in, and then we had an original drummer, but that didn't work out. So I had to audition drummers, and I met Michael Jerome Moore, who's one of the most phenomenal drummers I've ever worked with. And he was he was a blessing when he came in at the 11th hour and filled that spot. And so that's the band, and that's the band that's going on the road, and they're great. I mean, we're rehearsing right now, and it's just they're really, really solid. Teddy's an awesome singer, and B3 organ and Wurlitzer and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Rhodes.
those keys are just masterful. I mean, when you listen to the keys, and I want to make sure we get in. We've got a rooftop at Pier 17 in New York City show coming to my neck of the woods. One of my favorite places to see a show. It's so scenic and there's
It
such a
is one
great
of my.
vibe there.
I've
It's
only played
awesome.
there once, but man, it is the best vibe. So I'm so excited that we're doing this at that
Yeah, me
particular.
too. Sunday, August 4th, by the way, as part of the S.E.R.P.E.N.T Blues Festival. I want everybody to know too that the people that are on the festival with you, Warren Haynes is coming and Samantha
Yeah.
Fish, and it's just a great lineup. These are going to be individual sets from the artists as well, because it's a
Yeah.
festival, correct?
Yeah. So I think on the New York show, I think it's Kevmo and Jackie Vinson and ZZ Ward are on the
Ooh,
bill. And so they'll just all play, and then we'll play at the end, and there'll be some jamming. It's going to be the whole festival, the whole tour is going to be a blast because it's summertime. It's one of those things that I am really sort of partial to, which is live music in the summer and an outdoor kind of venue. It's just something that turned me on as a kid, and I've always dug that. So to be able to do a blues festival in the summertime and all these outdoor venues is going to be really, really a lot of fun.
I think it's epic, and I think it's so amazing that people are going to get to experience this. Also, we want to let everybody know that you're going to be live from the Mission Ballroom in Denver as part of the S.E.R.P.E.N.T Blues Festival. You can stream it live on
Yeah,
July 17th on Veeps. Veeps is cool. Get all these shows and then they archive them. So
yeah.
if you miss it, it's
You can,
still going to be available via veeps.com, and or if you see it the first time and you want to see it again. So I love the way that they do that, and I think this is a perfect thing to kind of do this for too.
yeah. I'm really happy to be able to do that. And the band sounds so cool. So I'm dying for it to be sort of preserved in a live setting so people can actually see it as many times as they want. But I might try and do this every year. So if this festival works out, then try and do something like this every year. Because I think blues festivals are few and far between these days. So but I mean I've been to a couple or a few in my lifetime, and they're just awesome. It's such a great vibe.
Absolutely. One of the best vibes of community and feeling. And I love it. I mean, just love it. And I love this record. This record to me is a tour de force. I'm so happy for you. People have wanted you to do this forever. Everybody's been like, Slash has to do a blues record, Slash. And it's so amazing how when the time aligns just right, it's almost like everything fits and everything just kind of goes the way that it should.
Yeah, I mean, it's been mentioned to me now that you bring it up a few times. When are you going to do a blues record? And I just, it's like I just all of a sudden it came to me that I had to do it at the moment that I did it. Prior to that, I don't think it would have worked out the way that this worked out. I think that it all sort of was meant to be at that moment. So there you go.
Orgy of the Damned. Number one, it's going to go 4 more weeks at least. I know it. Rooftop at Pier 17 on Sunday, August 4th. Slash, I love you. You know, I'm a super fan, whether or not we do it on the phone or you're nice enough to let me talk to you at a venue or you come to the station. I'm always happy to see your face, and it's always such a great pleasure. I am humbled and honored to have you on.
Terry, you're awesome. Thank you for all the kind words and stuff. I'm pretty humbled at this point, but I will see you hopefully when we're over there.
I will be at the show. Absolutely, my friend. Thank you so much.
Hang out. Have a good one.